everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's the Monique Presley Show. I'm your host, Monique Presley. I'm so thankful to be with you today and every day, where we're still trying to do what we've been trying to do the past 3 years, make it make sense, take things that are convoluted, areas where we need clarity, where there might be some confusion, or hey, maybe today what we really need to do is correct some things. Y'all know I love my alliteration. But I am super thankful for the opportunity to be here with you and to discuss what's going what's going down, especially in Minnesota, because it seems like there's some confusion around these parts about what it means to have freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, the protections that are available through freedom of the press under the First Amendment. And so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about those things. Unless you've been completely under a rock, you've probably in some way, shape, or form seen that there was really a small, by my standards, protest at a church in Minnesota a couple of days ago. And a friend of the show, friend of me personally, award-winning journalist Don Lemon, was covering it. And next thing you know, like the whole of the current regime of the federal government is weighing in about people having a right to pray and worship without being interrupted. And they said Don led the charge, and they said Don was with the protesters. Now there's a whole live stream that can refute that, but that doesn't matter. When you're dealing with these people, it doesn't matter that there is something available, readily accessible, that can refute their story. They go with the story that they are interested in. And that is basically what they've been doing. That's what they've been doing. And I didn't want to just talk about this on my own. I talked about this on my own yesterday on Dawn's show. But today I have someone who knows so much more about it than me. And y'all, please like, please subscribe, please do all the things. I think it's on the ticker, trying to make sure so you guys can know, what we're doing and why it matters, and et cetera, and so on. We want as many people as possible to be following. So if you subscribe, then the algorithm is our friend. So please do that. I would appreciate you. But back to the matter at hand. I am so excited to have joining us for the first time on the show, straight from the ground zero of where all these things are happening, award-winning journalist extraordinaire, Georgia Fort. Can you all please welcome Georgia? And we want to just before she even comes on, I want to say for people in the comments, we support independent journalists. And so we want to give her our best effort. Georgia. We can't hear you. You might be on mute.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yay!
How are you? Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. I'm happy to have you. I really wanted to talk to you because I know that you have been where the action happens, but it's your first time on the show. So if you could please tell folks what you do and how long you've been doing it and whatever you want them to know, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I am a 3-time Midwest Emmy Award-winning journalist based out of Minnesota. This is my home. This is where I'm from. I've been in media since 2009, started in radio, worked at several stations across the country before transitioning into news, and ultimately went independent after having some pretty negative experiences as a biracial Black woman working in the industry mainstream. And so decided to go independent after everything happened with the murder of George Floyd. It felt like there was an urgency for accurate stories to be put
Yeah.
out about what was happening on the ground. And so I
Yeah.
ended up being one of two journalists inside the courtroom during the sentencing of Derek Chauvin. I was also inside the courtroom during the Kimberly Potter trial after Dante Wright was killed. So I've been here in Minnesota covering what's been happening for several years independently.
And lo and behold, we've got yet another thing to blow up right there in Minnesota. And I years ago was in and out of Minneapolis a lot, and I got a chance to know the people. And then some years later, who's become a good friend of mine now, was first lady of a church there, and I just have such a heart for Midwesterners and Minnesotans in particular. And I'm going to show some footage to me, which is like vintage, like encapsulates everything that I know and love about people from Minnesota. I'll show the video in a little bit. I posted it a couple of days ago, one of Don's interviews, but it then turns into this hotbed,
Yeah.
right? There are these flare-ups, and for whatever reason, it ends up being just worse than anything you can imagine. And then when you think it's gotten as bad as it can get, it gets even worse than that. What have you been doing on the ground in the days since this ICE invasion?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been working nonstop. And the thing that I'd like to underscore is that we have witnessed or received documentation of other people witnessing the arrest, the unconstitutional arrest of US citizens. There's now a class action lawsuit that has been filed by the ACLU. We've seen due process violated for people who are not US citizens. We've seen the violent arrest of people who are not US citizens, attacks on journalists, attacks on legal observers. And then I think the tipping point in terms of the response that folks have seen to all of these things that have been happening here, the tipping point was the failure to investigate the killing of a US citizen. And so I know that now the headline is, this DOJ investigation because of a protest at a church. But I just think that people have to reframe the facts here. That is not the story. That, in my opinion, that is not the headline. That is a microcosm. That is a symptom of the other issues that I've outlined. And until those issues are addressed with with any type of accountability, I think that you're going to continue to see people in Minnesota doing whatever they can to continue to demand justice, to continue to demand accountability.
Okay, yeah, and I agree with you 100%. I think that one of the tricks, frankly, of the enemy, but certainly of this current regime, it's always, and I talk about it on the show all the time, they deflect, they distract, they do red herrings. It's always like shiny object over here because they don't want you to look at the thing that's right here in front of your face. And so in order to do that once again, where they try to not make ICE the story, they try to rally the base, they try to gin up people's responses, people's emotional responses, Christian responses in particular. What can you tell us about what happened on Sunday? Were you on the ground? Did you get direct footage of it yourself?
So on Sunday, there's a long history to dial back even a little bit further before Sunday, right? The organization or organizations that were leading the demonstration that happened on Sunday have a long standing credibility here in Minnesota organizing. And so when you talk about journalists, for us, we put a lot of merit, a lot of emphasis on our sources and their credibility, right? And so I just want to underscore that the organizations that were leading this demonstration are longstanding organizers here in Minnesota. They were on the front lines after Jamar Clark was killed. So the 18-day occupation at the 4th precinct when Philando Castile was killed, Justine Damon, George Floyd, Dante Wright, Amir Locke. Like there's been so many different things that have happened here in our community. And as a journalist, you start to realize which organizations are leading demonstrations that end up with property damage, that end up with people being arrested, that end up with
Mhm.
semis driving through them, and
Mhm.
which ones end up peaceful, which ones end up with everyone making it home to their families. And as a mother myself, I really try to prioritize providing coverage that I know, like, I can also be safe at. And
Mhm.
so, but the day before, we had a January 6th rioter who was here, and I actually made a decision to not go because I feel targeted as a Black woman. I feel like
Yeah.
we've seen this person incite violence. So why would I not expect that? Why would I go
Mhm.
and put myself in harm's way? And I think
Right.
that's just important context because no one has that or is providing that context of these organizations that organized this demonstration on Sunday. Instead, they're vilifying them.
And what were
And
the organizations?
it we have it. I don't have the list right in front of me, but it's documented on our coverage. At least if you go over to my pages, georgiafort.com. But Operation Pull Up, right? This
Right.
was what this was called, and so Operation Pull Up is something that happened after George Floyd, after Dante Wright. There was, and you can, all of this is searchable. People went to the police union, the president of the police union's home,
Mhm.
and protested at his home to apply pressure. They went to the home of the county attorney who was overseeing the case for the Kimberly Potter trial and urging him to press charges. That was effective, where the county attorney actually came out and talked to protesters. And so when we heard Operation Pull Up, we knew this was going to be more of a private protest. They keep these demonstrations private to also ensure that people from the general public can't just come and incite violence and do anything else. And because they are going to a very targeted place at the doorstep of a decision maker, right? And so this was the context that I had going into what happened on Sunday. And expecting, okay, we're going to be going to a very specific place of a decision maker, but none of the information, as Don Lemon has outlined, nobody knows. It's a pop-up protest. There's a long history of these. And so when we arrive, our role as journalists is to document. And so what we saw was folks calling out the pastor of a church who is also serving as the director of the St. Paul office for ICE.
And
And
that's David Eastwood, right?
David Eastwood. And so, not to be confused with the man who was captured in the video, Jonathan Parnell, I believe is his name. He is the lead pastor there. And so David Easterwood either was absent that day or he left
Or
when
left.
when the protest started, right? And so I think what we've seen is, like, yes, people are protesting at the federal building. People are getting injured, people are getting arrested, people are freezing, getting frostbite. Nothing is really happening there. People are protesting at the memorial. And so I understand people's frustration, that, you know, this is a sanctuary, this is a place of worship. But I also, as a journalist and like breaking down the nuances of all the sides of this, what choice are you leaving the people of Minnesota with when every single day we are witnessing the unconstitutional arrest of citizens and nothing is happening? We witnessed the fatal shooting of a US citizen and nothing happened. We're seeing due process being violated. We're seeing journalists attacked, legal observers attacked. What
Mhm.
other action of recourse? People have had, and I've amplified this, community meetings with elected officials begging and pleading for intervention. The governor and the mayors have begged and pleaded with this administration to turn the temperature down, and no one is listening. And so I
Well,
want
I
people
just
to.
wanted to, I saw one of your videos, and I thought a point that you raised, well, all of the points were important, but one of the critical points that I think maybe people are wanting to conveniently not understand is what civil disobedience actually is. And you were pointing out how many people have been arrested in the civil rights movement and for the cause of liberty, and civil disobedience is one of the methods that is used. But when you say civil disobedience, I think people are forgetting, yeah, that means breaking the law. People go into it with the understanding that the actions that they're taking as protesters may be ones that land them in jail, but that is different than you being there covering the
That's
story
right.
as a journalist who is not participating in the protest or
That's right.
leading the protest, but documenting it, or Don being there and doing the same.
That's
But
correct.
I just thought it was interesting, and I want to show you a couple of pictures
And they would
because,
never say that, and they would never say that to white journalists. They would never say that to white journalists.
well, and we're watching that happen, but also, some of my favorite people have been arrested. I'm trying to get it where we can see the picture and see the people at the same time. But there's my dear, dear hero, Reverend Barber, being arrested.
Yeah.
And what was he being arrested doing? Praying. Praying in the U.S. Capitol, arrested, praying. And here's another time where he was arrested at the Capitol back when Sheila Jackson Lee was still alive. And what happened that same day? Arrested. And we don't even want to talk about John Lewis, our hero.
Yep.
How many times was he arrested from the time he looked like this until the time he looked like this? And I remember the last time I ran into him was on a train ride, and he said he might get arrested one more time before it was all over and done with. Here's entire members of Congress staging sit-ins. I don't trust an activist, frankly, who hasn't been arrested. And it goes so far back, I think people forget that the letters from the Birmingham jail actually came from a jail cell. And so that's what civil disobedience is. And I don't think I have, and maybe you do, but I'll leave it to say for me, I'm sure as a Christian and as an ordained minister that if the protest of the day was interrupting my congregants and interrupting the sermon and interrupting our praying, nobody in the church is going to be happy about that. And I understand that there are protections in the law that are available and speak to that. But the point is not for people to be comfortable any more than it is with a sit-in or any more than when it's a demonstration in a federal building. That's not, the point is not for people to be comfortable.
And I said in the same video I think you're referencing, where I talked about, like, Rosa Parks has been arrested as well. It's protest and civic disobedience is not meant to be agreeable. It's not meant to be comfortable. And as a journalist, it's not our job to agree or disagree with what we're documenting. It's our job to document what is happening, right? And so it just seems like our country is in an era of selective outrage.
Yes.
And if a portion of the population had the outrage for this, as they did for a U.S. citizen being brutally shot in the face, maybe we wouldn't be having this discussion, because maybe protests like that are so controversial wouldn't be necessary. I also like to point to the fact that we've kind of escalated in terms of the role of white Christian nationalists in the act of political violence, in the act of racist rhetoric. When you look at what happened in Minnesota back in June with the assassination of Melissa Hortman, there was a long history of this individual who was very involved in the church, who had been on missions trips to Africa. And so we are currently living in a time where religion is being weaponized to and politicized to justify these acts of violence and these unconstitutional arrests and killings. And so
And
I
only
think
when it's only like they can be on either side of it though. You know, like me being a Christian or you being a Christian, if something happens to us, won't be the point at all. But if it suits their purposes, this current regime, then it matters. Which is why I put up the picture of Dr. Barber being arrested for praying. But then in this instance, they're so offended by somebody's prayer being interrupted. It's not about the praying. It's about
there's
whatever.
the hypocrisy and the double standards never stop. And so if what you're doing is not rooted in truth and it's not rooted in the principle of Christ, like at the end of the day, one of the principles of Christ was, above all things, love thy neighbor as thyself. And so are we seeing that practiced out in the policies and in the enforcement that's currently on our streets? And then some will say, the separation of the church and the state. But if you really believe in these things, then why are you violating them? You're violating your religious values. You're violating the values of the Constitution of this nation. And so I think we're at a time, and I've been urging media, a principle of media, that we're supposed to be neutral. But
Yeah.
if you are neutral about the dismantling of our democracy, you can't expect to be protected by it, right? And
Yeah.
so I do have the First Amendment to be that's supposed to protect me to be able to go out and document things, just like Don Lemon has the First Amendment right to be able to go out and document things as a member of the press. But if we stand by idly neutral while citizens are being unconstitutionally arrested, then how can we, if we're neutral about that, then how can we expect to be protected under the First Amendment right? We can't have it both ways. The Constitution can apply to the press, but not apply to the public. And so I think the media really has to change its posture, because so far it's, like even the way that I'm seeing the media cover what Don Lemon's role in this, and now the DOJ's threatening, charges against all of these protesters and potentially the journalists who were there too. They're like talking about this as though it happened in a vacuum, as though this is not the same state, as though this is not the same area where we have the ACLU suing the administration because there is evidence that citizens are being unconstitutionally arrested. They're talking
Mhm.
about what happened on Sunday as though this is not the same place where a U.S. citizen was just brutally shot in the face, a 37-year-old mother, like
Well, and it's
it.
not just that it's the same place where that happened. I think what you touched on earlier is the point that I really need to see media just like sit in and not leave alone. It's the same DOJ that is refusing to prosecute or even investigate whether there should be a prosecution or not for the killing of Renee Nicole Good. It's that same DOJ that within 24 hours sent special prosecutors to touch ground in Minneapolis to investigate some protesters going into church. I mean, they allocated resources
Yep.
immediately. They're going on TV immediately. They're calling for investigations immediately of journalists and of protesters, and they don't have any intention. Like they're setting up the ICE agent as if he was the injured party.
Yep.
And we're looking at all of these DOJ members, federal and in the state, leaving their jobs, which, for us as lawyers, that's the last thing you do. That's when you can't do anything else about it. You've tried to fight internally, you've lodged complaints, when you resign and protest, that's the end of the thing for you.
Yeah.
And so when I see career prosecutors and
Resigning.
members of the civil rights division
Yep.
leaving their jobs, you wonder why. When you see Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, Harmeet Dillon,
Yep.
they got all the time in the world. They had our entire Department of Justice, and they got time to speak on this one thing. It's absurd.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you said the name of Renee Good. I think all day since we've been talking, I keep saying failing to investigate the killing of a US citizen. And I keep framing what happened to Renee Good that way, because this is not an immigration issue. This is an American issue, and every US citizen ought to be alarmed, because Renee Good was a US citizen. And if this could happen to her, and the failure to investigate, the failure to prosecute, this could happen to you. It could happen to any of us. And so I need American people, regardless of your race, your religion, your gender, your socioeconomic status, to see yourself in her. And so for me, I think that's why I keep underscoring the fact that she was a US citizen, because there is so much divisiveness around who's legal and who's not legal, as if being a US citizen is some safeguard that protects you from violence, that protects you that makes you immune to what's happening. No, this administration is clearly showing us that they will kill us, and they have said it. They have said it publicly on the record, and now they've done it, and now there's no investigation around it. The New York Times, and not only are they not investigating, they have prohibited the BCA here locally from investigating, which then leads Keith Ellison, our Attorney General, and Mary Moriarty, the Hennepin County Attorney, who have opened up a portal to collect evidence for them to investigate it. But guess what? I heard today that the DOJ just said that they're going to subpoena Keith Ellison. So 3 days ago, the DOJ was going to subpoena or investigate our governor and the mayor of Minneapolis. And then Sunday, now they're going to investigate these protesters. And then now today, the DOJ is going after the attorney general. So, I mean, is it just basically the entire state of Minnesota that you're investigating? Basically everybody except for Jonathan Ross.
Right. And that's war. I don't think people really understand that we're watching, in terms of our state and federal interaction, we're watching the federal government invade and commit just acts of lawlessness against states and against really our state form of government, because the whole reason why we're supposed to be the United States of America, where we have certain rights that are reserved for the states, is because when you elect a governor and even a mayor and an attorney general in your state, they're supposed to have some province, they're supposed to have some power. And what we're seeing now is an attempt to federalize all of that. But I know I only have you for a couple more minutes, and I can't think of anybody who could explain what's going on better than this fellow. Have you always been in Minnesota, by the way?
I have left at different periods for work, but I am born here, and then I came back. Yeah, I came back in like 2017, 2018.
Okay, well, let's see if we can watch this real quick, and I'll talk to you on the other side.
What's that going to mean?
This is a white supremacist agenda.
Why do you say that?
Fuck off.
No, me, dude. I'm
You're
not
on
here.
Whose team are you on?
Come on, man.
Don Lemon.
This is Don Lemon.
All right, man.
All right. Well, no.
Sorry, brother. I'm so sorry.
Much
Really?
on our team.
No, I'm so sorry.
On our team.
Yeah. So why do you say that?
This is a white supremacist agenda. They're not just going after criminals. I'm so sorry I went after you there. I didn't
Come on.
recognize
Do I
you.
look upset?
There's all kinds of folks out here with media. They're not just going after criminals. They're going door to door, and they're targeting any black and brown person they can find. And all of America is next. If you live by a black or brown person, you're next. They're above the law. They outnumber our police. This is a white supremacist agenda. No?
No. When did you get? You just today's your first?
I live nearby. I've been out a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah. But why do you come
I'm so
out?
sorry I went after you, man.
Dude, it's fine. Why are you out here instead of like being in your warm, cozy house?
Because there's a point where whites got to stand up and recognize that this is a white person problem, and we need to represent our black and brown neighbors and disavow MAGA.
Yeah.
We need to put an end to this. We need to put an end to this. We fucked up so bad. This is the end result of all of the bigotry and racism that we have been putting up with for years. This is the logical conclusion.
What do you think is going to happen? Where does this end? How does it end?
I don't know. What do I do?
Yeah.
And obviously, so Minnesota, he apologized like 15 times, but his initial reaction was understandable. And then the immediate like reconciliation of it to people who were on your side. But isn't it a shame? You got to ask, what side are you on? Whose team are you on? Do you even care about us? Like, those are questions that you go through. But I think he gets it exactly right, that we are dealing now with a problem that has been ignored and ignored and ignored and ignored. And it's time for everybody to step up and do their part.
Yeah, he hit the nail on the head. And there's a quote. I can't remember. Is it Dr. King? An injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And when we create a society
Might have been Nelson Mandela, not sure. Either way.
Yeah, that's why I was like, wait a minute. But I know people are familiar with the quote. When we create a society that tolerates injustice,
yeah,
it breeds it. It allows it to grow. And so, I mean, there were so many writings on the wall before we got here. January 6th was a significant indicator of what was coming. The people who descended on the Capitol and people ended up killed that day, right? Like, these are the folks who are now in position in this administration, who are leading the charge for these ICE agents, who are serving in elected seats, who are teachers at our school, who are officers at our local police stations. And so this ideology has infiltrated basically every American system. And I do know that at that time, they did try to bring forth charges against those people, but most of that was undone and pardoned by Trump. And so I think that interview that Don did with the gentleman protesting out at the federal Whipple building here in Minnesota really just hit the nail on the head, that we have tolerated these things. Maybe had we have taken a stronger approach to denouncing bigotry, if we had a zero tolerance for racism, had we have set the tone differently, had we have not forced Black Americans for decades, if not centuries, to have to beg and plead and fight for just a semblance of justice, had we have treated Black citizens with the same dignity as our white counterparts, maybe we would actually have a justice system that upheld our Constitution. And so I concerned, that this guy's prediction is exactly right. It's like, we've tolerated these things. And so that is why we are here today. We set the stage. 2026, 2025 did not just happen overnight. There have been a series of things that have allowed us to get to this point.
That's right. That's right. Well, you're not part of the problem. You're part of the solution,
Thank
Georgia. You. And we thank you. As I said offline, I'll say publicly, anything you all need, you're there, you're on the ground. We don't wear capes for real, but we will come in and support in any way necessary. For protesters, for journalists, for whomever. National Bar Association is offering legal support, as are others. So if there's any need, we're here to support. Please tell people where they can find you and how they can support you and your work.
Thank you so much. GeorgiaFort.com has the links to all my social profiles. I'm online at by Georgia Fort with the T, and folks can support at georgiafort.com/support.
Thank you. I appreciate you joining. Please come back.
Thank you. I will.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Guys, please, this is critical. the work that she's doing in independent media. I always say every day, please support independent media. Please support journalists who are on the ground doing the work or online doing the work, who are not propped up by corporations, who are not propped up by big business, but consider their work to be a vocation and a call. Those are the ones that we need to support, and ones who have been doing it long enough for us to track them and know that they are professional and serious-minded people in the work that they do. That is what we want to see. That is who we want to support. And certainly, please support us here. All the ways you can do it are scrolling along at the bottom. Please like videos, please subscribe, please share. Please share. If you learn anything, please share with others, and please support us in giving here on YouTube, or you can support us through business PayPal at Monique Presley TV, and Cash App Monique Presley TV, same thing. We are going to be covering stories like this, obviously stories that matter. And there's going to be, look out for 2 more things. I did a standalone because I said every day between now and November, right? I'm going to remind you that the only way we stand a chance of checking this madman is through the vote. And the next clear opportunity that we have a chance to do that, which could mean a great deal for our democracy, is the midterms. If you don't understand what midterms are, if you don't understand how often they happen, if you don't understand who all is going to be there, who all is up for re-election or election, I'm explaining all of those things. It's like an 11-minute midterms tutorial with who, what, where, when, why, facts, and analysis. So that will be posted today. And The Week with Monique is coming out today also. So some separate content coming other than the live show. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being with us. I wanted to play something funny just so we could have a little bit of fun before we end today, because in between covering protests, Don was being Don. If you haven't seen the video on my IG, follow me on IG, guys. There's a lot of fun stuff that I just, levity matters during these days. But here's a little funny from in between.
Am I going to do a donut, or do I want to do a cinnamon bun? I don't really need any of it, but I think I'm going to do, I think I'll just do a donut. I'll just do a donut. So I don't know if I'll even need all these. Will you eat part of a cinnamon bun if I get one? Definitely. Cinnamon bun or donut?
Cinnamon bun.
All righty. Well, there we go. That answers that. Shit. Oh, man. This bag fell apart.
That's what you get when you stream live with friend and colleague Don Lemon. He takes you on the whole journey, and he was at that point in a store buying donuts, and next door at the Starbucks getting coffee to take to people who are out there freezing in the Minnesota cold, protesting and doing the work for our democracy. Everybody's not meant to be on the streets protesting, but everybody needs to be doing something. So please figure out what your something is and do your something today. I will be back with you tomorrow, noon Eastern, with more, whatever the day brings. Let's pray it's good. Wouldn't that be great if it was good? Till tomorrow. Y'all stay safe out there.